So,
You got the mic on.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's cool.
Always transcribe. Hello and welcome to the TED Talk on concentration and memory. I'm Oluwaseun, and I'm a final year engineer. So I was talking to you a bit about concentration and memory, and also a little bit about neurodiversity and how it impacts people who are neurodivergent. Who are neurodiverse. So the first thing we'll talk about is, we're looking through is studying view of concentration and memory. So we'll also look at the Goldfish Effect briefly, flow, how to get into the zone, and memory, and a little thing called hurdle, or yielded. And also the experience of someone who is neurodiverse. So the Goldfish Effect, what is it? So generally it's a term used to describe shortened attention spans. Basically just follows the idea of an unhealthy relationship that we have formed with social media. And it kind of inhibits our ability to take things slowly. But what is over time, what happens that what can be a great tool to stay connected with social media has become more of a distraction or an addiction. But truth be told, we do have actually better attention spans than a goldfish. It's not even an exact science. But these sort of things such as social media are like essentially taking us, inhibiting us to concentrate for long periods of time, generally. But it's just to illustrate that we do have challenges to overcome when it comes to concentration. So what is flow? Flow is a book by a guy called Mihaly. I'm not sure I pronounced the name correctly, but it essentially proposes a concept of total concentration, which is described in there as flow. And flow is essentially needed for peak performance. The idea is that there is power in concentration. So that's what we aim to study. This was actually proposed to me when I was in sixth form during product design, and my teacher was trying to get us to perform better in like the projects that we were doing. So he introduced the concept to us and basically just taught us to do whatever we needed to do to get into the zone, whether that included listening to music or doing an activity beforehand, or just trying to get us in the right headspace to concentrate and fully focus on the work that we're doing. For me, getting in the zone involves kind of listening to music, but not generally the same type of music that people might expect. As you've seen on there, you might have used a tool like the lo-fi sounds and stuff like that. But for me, I like to listen to movie scores because it gives me like a sense of like greater purpose in work that I'm doing. It helps me focus and makes it feel like I'm in a movie. But you see, you have different examples of people in the zone there, like LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Simone Biles, whether what they're doing is static or dynamic, they're still able to remain in the zone and perform to the best of their abilities. To perform to the best of your abilities, you have to think about other things such as, is your workspace clear? Is the environment you're in quiet? Do you have good enough lighting? Are you comfortable where you're at? Are you managing your time well? Do you have enough time? You're under pressure in the work that you're doing? Are you giving yourself breaks because you don't want to be overworking yourself? Are there any distractions in the environment? Are you multitasking, or are you focusing on one single thing at a time? Are you enjoying the work that you're doing? Because that's important as well. It's something that's really important in keeping focus. If you enjoy what you're doing, you want to do it more. Are you understanding the work? Because if you're not understanding it, then you won't have the effort to continue to doing it. You won't have the focus to get in the zone, especially. And are you using the right technique? Some people like to just think that they can just go for hours and hours and hours on end, just doing straight work and focusing, but that will lead to burnout. So you have to have the right technique, balancing work and breaks. So on to memory. The important things to remember when talking about memory is that the ability to recollect what you've learned. And things that help your ability to recollect what you've learned is to avoid cramming, to remain calm when you're doing whatever you're doing. Essentially talking to yourself, speaking out loud and hearing the sound of someone's voice in your own helps you remember things better. Using memorable metaphors or analogies. I know a lot of the medics that I'm around, friends with, they have acronyms to help them remember all sorts of things. Like there are hundreds of words that are in the body for the muscles. There are procedures that they use for their huskies, as well as using association with the senses, like associating things to a particular sound or a particular smell or a feeling. Talking to someone that's learning the same content, in my experience, what I found is that talking with people who are preparing for the same exam for me, just hearing what they have to say really helps a lot, because it fills like gaps in your knowledge. They know things that you don't know, as well as you know things that they don't know. And hearing them talking about exploring your horizons gets you thinking better. Using anagrams as well, so good memory tool. And memory is a way of organizing information in your brain. Like you all know the content, as long as you go through it, you all know the content. It's just your ability to pick out the relevant parts that you need for what's coming. So it's important to hone and focus what you're memorizing, particularly on areas that you're not comfortable with, stuff that you know, especially it's like you know that back of your hand. So you might want to tend to focus what you're memorizing on areas that you're not too familiar with, as well as using memory tools. And what I always try to talk to my mentees about is about using past papers. A quote from Michael Jordan is where he talks about the idea of perfect practice. That when you're practicing, you shouldn't practice and just repeating, fading like over and over again. What you practice is perfect practice, which is getting it right over and over again, because that should be what you're used to. So once you're practicing over and over again, you get the technique right, then you're basically just practicing how to succeed over and over again. And that's the same with past papers. Past papers are basically the final test because they're versions of what you're going to do that have come before. So once you've gone through the memorizing, put it all the concentration and everything like that, take it to a past paper and see how well you actually perform, because that is basically your in-game environment. Also practice questions if you're writing essays. And once again, it's important to gain an understanding for what you're learning and to enjoy what you're learning as well, because that will really helps a lot. There's a great tool called Edu, like I mentioned before, and there's also things that develop concentration and memory a lot are little games like crossword puzzles, word searches, jigsaws, as well as like more modernized social media versions of those little brain games like Edu and Wordle, which are just like 15-minute games that you can play, even much shorter than that, and just test your memory. An example of Edu, show you down here, is like you press it and you're essentially playing the intro to a song, and you're trying to think in your mind, okay, what's the intro to the song? If you can't get it, take another second, listen to a long part of the intro to the song, but it just gets your mind thinking of, okay, what could it be? Probably heard it before, so like you just keep jogging your mind, and gets your brain activated. Also, in your approach to work, it's very important that you're not just jumping straight into the work that you do. One of the most important things to remember while you're studying is that you can't just switch over from like a high-paced activity to a calm environment and the study of working. So it's about setting the tone. If you have to do a transition activity that calms you down and gets your head in the zone, you should do that. And it's also always important to remain calm when you study. Use visual reminders, associations, talk to someone, and make great use of the memory tools. So, on to studying neurodiversity. Honestly, I didn't know much about neurodiversity before I started preparing this presentation, but with the help of peer mentoring and with the experience of neurodiverse people that I know, I was able to formulate something that hopefully will help those who find studying a bit more difficult. So we're going to understand what we mean by the term neurodiversity, how does it impact study, alternatives to traditional methods, and what help is there for people with neurodiversity. So starting with neurodiversity, what we know as neurodiversity is termed in different stages, I guess. Neurodivergent refers to an individual, whereas neurodiverse refers to a group of people who are diverse. And neurodiversity is not just limited to things like ADHD, it's also autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, which you might be familiar with, as well as many other conditions, which is you can see in the presentation there. But the area of focus for us here today is ADHD. And I inquired from a friend of mine who actually went through her studies while managing ADHD to give a better perspective on what it takes to basically get in the zone for her. So this is Elike's story, Elike and ADHD. There's a quote from her when I asked her to help me. She said that ADHD makes it painfully hard to start tasks and prepare for tasks, but I always get them done regardless. So it just shows the spirit to overcome that she has despite some of the challenges that she faced. In her studies, that she found that ADHD for her looked like a lot of procrastination and leaving things to the last minute. She tried different ways of working around it. Not all of them worked, but ADHD looks different in different people, and the way that they manage it is different to everyone. So you can try anything. She tried starting work ahead of time, thinking ahead of the questions that she was going to do, because she did a more essay-based subject. Having a direct focus on what she wanted to do, again, the right technique. Initially, she found herself trying to do everything at once, like in a short space of time, but that wasn't really working. So she switched over to the Pomodoro technique, which is a means of working where you set out to do a task, you plan ahead, and you do a concentrated period of work for, let's say, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and then you spend the next 10 minutes taking a break. You might rest a little bit, then you go for another 15 minutes, and then once you've done enough 15-minute sessions, you have an extended break of like half an hour to an hour. And it just helps you balance the work and play aspects of what it takes to concentrate and study. And again, did have some tips because we went to ask her, she did quite well. And she was an inspiration to me as well, because I was there right there with her when she was going through all the struggles with her course and getting her work done on time. Is to work smart and not hard. A lot of people try to think that to put lots of focus, concentration into the thing, but maybe that's not what you need to do. If you work smart, then you go a lot further. You just trying to work hard and hammer everything done. A single space of time. Don't waste your time trying to observe absolutely everything. Choose your areas of focus and tailor them to what you need to focus on more, like what you're doing so well at. Rather than trying to do a broad spectrum learn of the content that you have, and just going over stuff that you already know well. Set your mindset to the task ahead of time. So begin to think about it. Even if you haven't started your work already, it's good to be in the mind frame of what you want to do, how you're going to do it. Dedicate time and understanding to the topic before moving on to the next. It's about continuing to focus. And again, referring back to not absorbing absolutely everything. So have a specific area of focus at a time and put 100% of your focus onto that rather than being into your mind and trying to multitask. Work in a quiet space at home, away from home, or like a library space like that. If you can work at home, you have a quiet space there, then do that. But it's about being in an environment where you have to work. At home, you find yourself thinking, oh, I'm gonna do some work, and then somebody's calling you to come and eat, or someone's calling to come and do something for that. Whereas in the library, there's hardly any distractions, and you get to be in an environment with people who are studying the same thing as you. the conversation that they have there will be about stuff that you're studying, so it keeps you on track. One of the other important things is here at the University of Leicester is you have the opportunity to get help from accessibility, which we'll talk about a bit more later. So on to that, impact on studies. Here we have the means of dealing with the impacts of organization, consolidation, and the revision. Organization, make a folder and divide it into workshops. This can be done digitally or in hard copies, depending on which one you find easier to organize. Use mind maps, timelining, overviews, concepts, and modules. Use different techniques for planning the essays, breaking down concepts into little chunks. As it says, some neurodiverse students find concentration challenging and feeling that words are moving or flickering on the page. We can use overlays, page colors, font colors. Of course, this is different for individuals, so it's just about finding whichever one works best for you and finding it early as well. So you don't want to leave it against the last minute, which is something that neurodiverse people tend to do. Furthermore, for the organizations, you make the sections, use visual aids, use overlays. Consolidation is how you prepare to revise. So you color code the stuff depending on the topic that's associated to structure information clearly, using different formats, solidifying information. Go over your lectures, go over the course content, and make sure you have it down. In terms of revision, use folders, reviews, summarize, practice. So people use different techniques like the write something down, cover it up, look at it. They might get someone to read it back to them. People use different things like Quizlet. I don't know if I've never used it personally, but it varies from what you're doing specifically. And memory games that we mentioned before, the crosswords, the word searches, the keyword word. Traditional methods of learning. Traditional methods of learning, teaching. Teachers followed the drill and wrote method of memorization. This method, children learn through repetition and memorization. There is little or no scope for critical thinking. I know it says that traditionally I've done quite well with this method, so I can't really say it doesn't work. There's a reason why it's a traditional method, but the fact of the matter is it doesn't work for everyone. Trying to get something that suits the individual needs. So students will typically sit in silence while one student after another will take the time to recite until they're called upon. It reminds me of like reciting Bible passages in church. But as you get older, like the way you learn might be different. Behaviorism, what is focused on, which it covers the work, is focused on observable, measurable behaviors. In public library applications include memorization tasks, some reading, reward systems. Cognitive, which is the how, focused on how people learn in public library applications. There's problem solving tasks, mind mapping activities, and constructivism, focused on why. We focus on the learner's role in their own learning, as social learning and cognitive learning. So you see how they all link together for that. And here's some other things you can try. And we already listed a lot of these, which include the memorization, talking about yourself, whether if you want to sing it or rap it, writing in the shower, maybe that helps. Making PowerPoint presentations, flashcards. Maybe if you want to put it in your notes app or don't want to write it down, make voice notes, reminding yourself, YouTube videos. I think when I was, and this is why I say that the memorization thing is good, because I remember things like how I know the popular like YouTuber KSI, he used to make like rap videos of the content that he wanted to learn, his GCSE content. And this now you see him now he's a very popular rapper on books or whatever he's doing now. But different things help different people, and for him, he was rapping and he uses that now to be a mainstream artist. Making schedules, taking breaks, watching YouTube tutorials, like post-it notes, having calming music, whether it's scored to a movie like use for Creed or the lo-fi music. Typically, I wouldn't use like regular songs because like, you'll get wrapped up in lyrics, get to your ads and stuff like that. But use actions, role plays, and things like that. Wherever you need it, actually. Give yourself rewards to take a break and do something fun. Talk a bit more about accessibility and services that are available here at the university. Independent of university, we will listen, consider your circumstances and advise you on the best route to take. Talk you through the processes and advise you on how to put together the information you need, as well as reviewing it for you before submitting to the university. On the peer mentoring side, you can talk to your mentors about how they go on and if any advice they give you is beneficial, and that's great. But of course, that's the advice that the help doesn't stop there. As well as in the university, there's the Accessibility Center to offer support and advice for students with dyslexia and other specific learning difficulties, as well as working with students who have sensory disabilities, motor, mobility difficulties, and other conditions of autism. So please take a look at what we have to offer. We'll get in touch, and a member of our team will organize an appointment to ensure that you have the right support. One thing that Elike said to me that was quite important was that there's help available, so we have to use ask for it. That's really important because I've seen so many people that who typically wouldn't do well in the regular exam structure, the regular working structure, who were able to achieve as much as they wanted to because Leicester provided them with the opportunity to work around their university or to work around any circumstances that were going on. So definitely make the most of the opportunities that are available to. And that's it.
Okay, so on the 3 dots, click on stop recording.